Over the past decade chasing storms, I have witnessed and experienced many things. Some of them incredible, some of them not so incredible. Storm chasers have many different reasons and goals in mind when they set out on a chase. Some are purely tornado chasers, others are looking for an artistic structure shot. Some like to view nature's chaos from afar, and others need an extreme encounter or a near-death experience to meet their needs. None is more right than the other. In this video, I'll attempt to rank my top 10 best storm chases over the past decade. Although it weighs heavily, the tornado itself isn't necessarily the most important factor, and unfortunately not every amazing tornado catch can make the list as a result. But here we go. Number 10. May 16th, 2017. This was a moderate risk across the southern plains. We left Chicago just after midnight, driving straight through and arriving just as this tornado near McLean, Texas developed, witnessing most of the life cycle. Shortly after, we encountered hail up to 3.5 inches in diameter, which left some new cracks in the windshield. Later on, a new supercell developed and displayed some of the best structure I have seen from afar. Just classic, beautiful supercell structure here. Even later in the day, we witnessed the development of a new tornado south of Elk City. This was a position not many chasers had, as the storms were difficult to keep up with. This tornado eventually became rain-wrapped and very difficult to see. This tornado went on to do EF3 damage in town. And while I don't consider either of these tornadoes to necessarily be career tornadoes, if you combine them with the huge hail and amazing structure, it makes for an all-around great chase. Add in the fact that we got there just in the nick of time, and victory felt that much sweeter. Not only that, I picked up Chelsea in Elk City that morning after instructing her to leave her car there. I had booked a room that morning, not realizing that they would get hit with a tornado during the chase. So we had to go back there wondering if her car had been hit. We ended up spending the night at that Motel 6 with no power, and we had to drive around for about an hour to find food. We ended up having to settle on gas station snacks to fill us up for the night. The whole day just makes for a wild and memorable story, the kind that can only come with storm chasing. Number 9. June 12th, 2017. Despite back-to-back events on this list being from 2017, it was overall a slow year. One of the more notable events was this amazing, long-lived EF2 that occurred in southeastern Wyoming near the town of Carpenter. This was on a day that saw the furthest west moderate-risk tornado probabilities that had ever been issued, along with the first and only PDS tornado watch ever issued in the state of Wyoming. This was a very difficult forecast to make. The season was winding down, and not a lot of chasers were on this event. Any catch outside of traditional Tornado Alley late in the season always feels a little extra special. I was able to get close to the tornado for a beautiful dramatic shot. That is until Storm Chaser Max Olson ran over some downed power lines and flung them onto me. After I managed to get free, we pursued the tornado to witness its dramatic rope out. Later on that day, we witnessed several more tornadoes and some very dramatic structure. The perfect way to end traditional chase season and prepare for summer. Number 8. October 4th, 2013. This day makes the list for perhaps the wrong reasons. A potent fall setup is always a treat for chasers before the long wait of winter sets in. The Wayne, Nebraska tornado grew to 1.4 miles wide and was rated EF4. In my attempt to get my ideal position, I misjudged both the speed and trajectory of the tornado. I realized this error and had to bail on my plan. Backing in reverse, my window blows out as the inflow jet wraps around the tornado. I stopped to let this massive wedge pass very close before looking outside my window to see the tornado is expanding. Backing up again, I get clipped by the very outer edge of the tornado. This is one of only a couple moments I feared for my life on the chase, but thankfully I knew what to do to get out of there. This up-close encounter is one of the most intense moments of my chasing career. Although I don't intend to repeat the experience, it's one I look back on and go, wow, that actually happened. Number 7. May 28th, 2013. I set a personal best record in 2013, 5 chases in a row with tornadoes. I woke up on this day to a rather conditional forecast and made the comment at breakfast, I bet the streak ends today, but we were out here so we had to chase. Marginal conditions existed over a huge area leading to a difficult forecast. We did a good job keeping an eye on how the day was evolving and were in perfect position to watch an isolated supercell go up near Bennington, Kansas. This stationary supercell went on to produce this incredible tornado that stayed on the ground for over 40 minutes. I managed to time-lapse much of its evolution, including this textbook transition from classic to rain-wrapped HP mode right here. A brief moment of horror struck during filming this tornado when my camera began flashing a hard drive error, but thankfully the footage was not lost. This is still one of the more impressive tornadoes I have documented, all on a low probability day many weren't optimistic about. This was now my 6th chase in a row with the tornado. Unfortunately, the streak ended the following day, but the 6 in a row is still a record that stands as of the recording of this video. Number 6, May 22nd, 2010. Bowdle, South Dakota. You may have seen this on a lot of Chaser top 10s, and for good reason. A boom or bust forecast that went boom. A single, isolated supercell went up in northern South Dakota, dropping at least a dozen tornadoes. This was my first real tornado fest from a cyclic beast. Many of the tornadoes were photogenic. The most notable tornado was the Bowdle EF4, which unfortunately we had a bad view of due to losing our position after our road was cut off by the TIV being tangled in downed power lines. We got back into position to view several more tornadoes that followed. Things took a turn for the worse when the storm flipped the cards on us, dropping multiple tornadoes around us. We found ourselves at a dead end when we discovered our road turned into a field despite our maps showing it going through. We couldn't turn back around due to another chaser being stuck. Pinned with multiple tornadoes bearing down, we had no choice but to bail down the field. We crested a hill only to find the field was flooded, or maybe it was a pond, I don't know. The situation turned bad quickly as one by one we began sinking in the mud. This is the first time I felt totally helpless on a chase. We were out of options and at the mercy of the storm. A tornado developed very close to us, but ultimately we were spared. This became one of the more notorious and controversial stories in the chase community. In the end, we had to pay a hefty fine for damages to the field. Honestly, we probably got taken for by the locals, as we heard rumors the road was illegally plowed over by the farmer. I was even contacted by a different farmer who apologized and said the guy we ended up dealing with is known for being a hard ass and isn't liked by the community. But I for one did not feel like pursuing it further. We were just glad to be out of there. This is another day I don't intend to repeat, but it is one I will never forget. Number 5, November 17th, 2013. A late-season high-risk outbreak struck my home state. This was the most dire forecast I ever put out for my local area and one of only 2 times I considered not chasing due to the fact I thought my house might actually get hit by a tornado. Despite the large amount of tornadoes that occurred this day, it was an extremely difficult day to chase with storm speeds approaching 70 miles an hour, early morning timing, HP storm modes, and the potential for tornadoes to become embedded within a squall line. The most notable tornado of the event turned out to be this EF4 that struck Washington, Illinois. We managed to get ourselves in a great position to get some of, if not the best chaser video of the day. This is the only tornado I have technically seen in the morning, as we intercepted it around 11:30 a.m. This is also the strongest November tornado to strike the state of Illinois and a career catch. I became heavily involved in recovery efforts and ended up visiting the town a month later to present the mayor with a check from money raised through charity efforts from Storm Assist. Number 4, June 16th, 2014. 2014 was a horrible year for most chasers, with very few noteworthy events. However, it seemed nature was saving all that energy for one unprecedented event that would take place on this day. Conditions came together in Nebraska to produce a localized tornado outbreak. The main show of the event would be the Pilger twins. 2 tornadoes at once happens more often than you might think, but what made these so noteworthy was how long they traveled side by side. Usually one tornado is dissipating while another is just getting going, or you have a small satellite, or 2 tornadoes on 2 different storms visible at the same time. But these were long-lived twins from the same storm traveling side by side for over 20 minutes. Both of them were rated EF4. We had an amazing view of the first tornado developing and stood in amazement as the twin event unfolded. In hindsight, I wish I would have pursued them earlier and gotten closer, but with 2014 being such a bad year, I did not want to risk my only chance at good tornado video by spending it in the car. The Pilger twins may be a once-in-a-lifetime event. Number 3, May 24th, 2016. Picking a target is one of the top challenges that face chasers on any given setup. Once in a while, though, the perfect conditions come together so obviously you just know where to be and when. May 24th, 2016 was that day. Dodge City, Kansas was the location. Unfortunately, it meant just about every chaser in the country was there, which created some of its own challenges, but the setup lived up to everything it was thought to be. This is the most tornadoes I have seen on a chase, with many of them being incredibly photogenic. This is also one of only 3 times in my career we had 3 tornadoes on the ground at once. Things took a rough turn at the end of the day when my road buckled, sending me into a muddy ditch I could not climb out of. A second storm blew up overhead and pummeled us with tennis ball-sized hail, breaking my mirror. I was worried that this new storm would produce tornadoes as well, but at least I was already in a ditch, right? I was pulled free by a friendly local, and then treated to one of the most amazing Mamadas-filled sunsets I have ever witnessed. These are the career chases that storm chasers dream of, and a setup like this only comes along a handful of times per decade. Number 2, June 17th, 2010. Like I mentioned earlier, setups outside of traditional Tornado Alley, especially later in the season when most other chasers in the Southern Plains are done for the year, have a little extra special feeling to me. On this day, a potent severe weather setup was in place across Minnesota, but many called for a quick transition to a squall line with maybe a brief window for tornadoes. A prefrontal trough not picked up on by most models had a different plan in mind, and we ended up with the most tornadoes the state of Minnesota has seen in a single day, with 48. We witnessed about a dozen of these. The pinnacle moment came with the Conger EF4, a stout, photogenic cone which morphed into a psychedelic multi-vortex. Most of the tornadoes this day were really photogenic and came in just about every shape and size you can expect to see. Nothing bad or crazy happened to me on this day either, adding to the success factor. This will be a tough chase to beat, but I look forward to the day it happens. Number 1, May 25th, 2016. Yes, this is the day after the incredible Dodge City event I just talked about. A low probability day not many paid too much attention to. Maybe we'd get a storm and maybe a tornado. However, subtle conditions came together in an area of north central Kansas known for pulling big surprises. Remember where number 7 was filmed? That's right, we're back in the same location. A handful of chasers, myself included, recognized this and would soon witness a single 90-minute EF4 tornado that would come to be known as the Chapman Tornado. Twice during this tornado's life, I managed to get extremely close to it. While it may seem weird that the number 1 spot is held by a single tornado, as opposed to a big outbreak with dozens of tornadoes, the rarity of this event is what propels it to number 1. It is the single, longest-lasting tornado of the entire decade, on a day no one thought it would happen, and I happened to be there to capture amazing images of it. This is as career of a catch as it gets. Even veteran tornado chaser Tim Marshall, who has been chasing for 30-plus years, labels this as the single most impressive tornado he has ever seen. 90-minute tornadoes are just exceptionally rare, and to be able to capture it from birth to near death is an incredible accomplishment, one of the best of my chasing career. So there you have it. That is my top 10 list of the most incredible chases of the past decade. Honestly, if you ask me on a different day, I may end up naming some different events. There are just too many amazing things to witness out there, and a lot of incredible tornadoes and storm chases had to be left out. You just can't name them all every time. I look forward to what the next decade brings, and I thank you all for tuning in and joining me on this ride. Catch you next time. I'd also like to give a special shout out to Jack Parsons from Illinois, who's been a weather enthusiast ever since he was a kid. Keep up the awesome work, Jack. It's excellent to see young minds interested in the weather, and I hope that you're able to continue to fulfill your passion as you grow older.